tennis abides can continue to grow, and we'll see where it heads in the years to come. I've enjoyed it a great deal. But the topic of this week's um, video blog is just a quick look at the year in review for the world of tennis this year. And I think the players of the year this year are pretty easy to identify. Neither one dominated kind of from post to post. Uh, but you know, the two number one ranked players, Serena Williams and Novak Djokovic, are the two players of the year this year. There's not a lot of debate. Rafael Nadal from January through early June probably had the best stretch. You know, he won the French Open, he won Madrid in a sort of method that he probably wasn't super happy about. But you know, he won Madrid, he won Brazil, he won his record ninth French Open, which is just a shocking statistic right there. He got his 14th major. Um, he was runner-up at the Australian Open, runner-up in Miami, runner-up in Rome. So he had a great, January to May, June run. But then, Halle didn't go well for Rafa. Played a little better at Wimbledon, but Kyrgios put in a just tremendous performance. And then, he pretty much was out until the very late part of the year and had a few forgettable appearances in Asia that didn't go so well. And then he had appendix surgery. So Rafa is not our player of the year. Federer had an outstanding year, showed a lot of consistency, won the Davis Cup along with Wawrinka, and won a lot of Masters Series events and other tournaments of note, such as Halle and Dubai. But anytime you win Cincinnati and you win a few other Masters events, it's a great year. But I do think Federer can't really be your player of the year. He didn't win a Grand Slam. He lost to Djokovic in that Wimbledon final. And so Djokovic, the Wimbledon win, the wins in Miami and Rome, and Indian Wells, along with that runner-up finish, the French Open semifinal at the U.S. Open quarterfinal in Australia, and then he wins the season-end championship without dropping a match in round-robin play. Novak Djokovic is your number one player and player of the year, and he also won the Paris Indoor, the Bear Seas. So, great year from Novak. On the women's side, Serena, she had a little bit of a less dominating year than Novak had. I mean, her loss in Melbourne wasn't terrible, but it was kind of a head scratcher. The performance at the French Open, she lost to a promising youngster on clay, which isn't her best surface, but another kind of head scratcher. And then Wimbledon was very strange. I mean, the doubles, there's no real good word for what happened on the doubles side of things. She either shouldn't have gone on the court, or, I mean, who knows what was going on. That we'll never know. That's probably like the riddle of the Sphinx and solving pi. It's not going to happen in our lifetimes. But Serena, winning the U.S. Open, she had a great hard court summer leading into the U.S. Open, including a title in Cincinnati, and then she won the season-end title. Even though she took a very one-sided loss in round-robin play, she avenged it in the final with a one-sided victory. So Serena's your player of the year on the women's side. I think in terms of breakthrough players, I think Wawrinka, he kind of broke through at the U.S. Open in 2013. And he had those two near misses in 2013 against Djokovic, two just incredible five-set matches at the Australian and U.S. Opens, and then played very well at the World Tour Finals in London of 2013. But, to come out, he won in India, then he wins the Australian Open, beating Djokovic and Nadal along with Berdych to take that first Grand Slam crown. He wins Monte Carlo, beating Federer in that final to take his first Masters Series shield. He had a very respectable quarterfinal showings at Wimbledon and the U.S. Open as well, and then played very well at the World Tour Finals and in the Davis Cup for Switzerland. I think Stan, even at some of the Masters Series events, is not as much of a threat as he is at, say, Grand Slam events. The guy's a big match player. I think in a 3 out of 5 set format, he's harder to beat, and I think he wants the big trophies. And so I think Stan, when you look at how he played in Melbourne, in London, and in New York, along with Davis Cup and then London for the World Tour Finals, the guy is a top flight player, and he's moved ahead of Andy Murray in my estimation in terms of where he stands on the tour. Rafa is still in that top 3 so long as he's healthy, which is always a question, I guess. But I think Stan is 4th, and I wouldn't be surprised if guys like Cilic, Nishikori, Dimitrov, and Milos Raonic are also pushing Murray for that fifth slot. Murray has been a bit of a disappointment this year. I don't know if it was parting ways with Lendl or if he's burned out. He had back surgery and he said he didn't really feel good until later in the year. But even after he started feeling better, he had some very kind of uncharacteristically one-sided losses to players like Djokovic and Federer, who can beat him, but generally he puts up a little more resistance than what we saw in some of those losses. So that's a story to watch for next year. I think Nick Kyrgios, he's a guy with a lot of game, a lot of power. Big questions about how does he mature, how does his game round out, how does he round out, tactically and strategically. Is he going to stay fit? And then the big thing is health. I mean, a lot of guys look great, but if they don't stay healthy, it's hard to know where their career will end up. But he was certainly there was a lot of excitement in following him at Wimbledon, and I'm going to write something a little bit more about that match because I really think it was kind of a watershed moment for tennis to see like the really younger generation. But I think the last guy I want to talk about is the big Canadian Milos Raonic. He played some incredible tennis this year. He was very consistent. I mean, that's one thing I think you have to look at is, yeah, he had a one-sided loss to Federer at the Wimbledon semifinal, and he had a one-sided loss to Federer at the Cincinnati semifinal, and he had a one-sided loss to Federer at the World Tour Finals. But he beat Federer in Paris. But when you look at the Grand Slams and you look at the Masters Series events, Raonic was consistently getting to the final 8 or further of those Masters Series events, and then he had his first Grand Slam quarterfinal at Paris at Roland Garros, and then he gets to the semifinal round at Wimbledon, where on a surface he had never really shown a lot of acumen for. So I think the future is very bright for him because consistency. If you're always putting yourself in a position to where you could win the tournament, sooner or later things tend to break your way. And I think if you're consistently getting to the round of 8 or the round of 4 at these Masters Series events and majors, you've got a lot to look forward to. So even though Nishikori and Cilic, competed for that U.S. Open final, I think Wawrinka is your breakthrough player of the year, and then I think Raonic was kind of your most consistent, kind of up and coming 25 and under type player. And then 20 and under, I'd go with Kyrgios, although there's a few other guys to keep an eye on.